Hey church, Pastor Jared here. Before we jump into the sermon, I want to make a big announcement. I recently released a new book called How to Become a Prayer Warrior. This year will be a year of divine breakthrough if you learn how to pray. And that's why I wrote this book. I want to teach you how to pray. In this book, I give you the principles of prayer, the power behind prayer, 14 different forms of prayer with practical application at the end of each chapter to get you praying now. I believe that God wants to elevate your relationship with Him. And I hope that through this book, you find the keys that you need to become a prayer warrior. So you can click the link below and grab your copy in any version, digital or physical, and get this book this year. I believe God is going to do great things in your life through it. Now, let's jump into the message with a heart of expectation, and let's get ready to receive everything that God has for us through this word.
My name is Pastor Q. I serve as the campus pastor here at the church, and I get the opportunity to share the word today on Super Bowl Sunday. Super Bowl Sunday. Jersey Sunday. I see a Pittsburgh fan, a Chargers fan. I see a Marlins fan. Come on, Ken Griffey. That's Griffey Jr. probably. Yeah. Dallas Cowboys, this was your year. How about all the Niner fans up in this house? Come on, somebody. For all the fellas wearing the Niner jerseys, I just want to remind you that it's also Valentine's Day week. So, put that in the books because you've been planning this big party. Wednesday comes along. Make sure you get, It's also Lunar New Year. Yesterday kicked it off. Lunar New Year's was yesterday. And so there's a lot going on this week. We just wanted to make sure you knew that we knew everything that was going on, okay? But last week, we got an opportunity to just kind of look at Pastor's life a little bit. We got to hear a conversation between Trin and Pastor. And I'll tell you what, I went to Trin and I was like, man, nobody could have done that better. Nobody would have been that, had that intimate knowledge of Pastor. And the way she honors him is it's wild. And it's really great to see how their marriage is. And I'm grateful to have a brother-in-law that way. Last week, though, she thanked him for the obedience of writing that book. And I'd like to do the same today. But not just that, I get to see his prayer life that he wrote, how he lives it. I've seen it change our church. You guys have been transformed because of his prayer life. His mom's prayer life too, y'all. She's online right now, I bet you. Barbara, we know your prayers rock this house all the time. But Pastor, your prayer life has changed my life. My growth, my spiritual growth, my leadership, all of that. And so thank you so much. Let's give a hand to our pastor real fast. I get to share a bit. I have a few Bible verses, and then you guys can take your seats. It comes from the book of Psalm 139, starting at verse 1. It says, "You have searched me, Lord, and you know me. You know when I sit and when I rise. You perceive my thoughts from afar. You discern my going out and my laying down. You're familiar with all my ways." God knows everything about you. He is highly aware. Those of you who think you're hiding this, God knows. We'll go all the way to the end of the chapter, the last two verses. Even though David knew that God has searched him, he asks for it. He says, "Search me, God, and know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts. See if there's any offensive way in me and lead me in the way everlasting." God, we thank you so much, God. I thank you for your faithfulness. We thank you. Oh, goodness. There's so many things. There's a giant list of things we can thank you, but God, more than anything else, that you have chosen us to involve us, to get into your world. Today we're asking that you would just connect your word. Do what you want with your children, God. Just take this moment of surrender and say, God, just rip our heart to what you want to say. We love you and praise you in Jesus' name. Amen. All right, before you take your seats, tell your neighbor my title in honor for Valentine's Day. It's the heart of the matter. The heart of the matter. The graphic. I told them, can you put like hearts up there, some Be Mine hearts, just to get everybody ready. But next week marks 7 years of our ministry. 7 years, y'all. You guys all got this on your seat, 7-year invitation. This is not for you. This is for you to give away to somebody else, okay? We want you to bring somebody. Next week, we have a ton of celebrations planned outside. It's gonna be fantastic. Pastor, obviously, he's gonna have an incredible word for us, prophetic word. He shared a little bit with the staff on how God has given him the word specifically for this next season here. But I'll tell you what, celebrations aside, we would just appreciate our church coming together, praising God, and just celebrating 7 years of his faithfulness on this ministry. And because I'll tell you what, like the stories of life change, the outreaches that we've gotten to be a part of, the miracles we've seen him do, the families we've seen him restore, it is an endless list of what God has done in this church. And would we just come together and just say, God, 7 years, we have given you everything. We just want to celebrate you. And so come next week, give this. This is probably the biggest invitation we have ever printed. I actually told the creative team, I was like, can you make it 4 times bigger than this? And they compromised with me. And so please give it to somebody. There's a party going on here. Just say, hey, we're going to a birthday party. Come on in. But with all of our staff and directors this week, we've already been on memory lane. In our meetings, we've been telling stories of previous Easters, of like the things that we've seen. We've been telling stories of how God has been faithful through all this time. And so story after story. So I have a story I'd like to share. I remember a few months before we launched the ministry. So as we were preparing and getting ready, I remember God was calling me to do a fast. And we just ended a church-wide fast, but God was calling me to fast, and the more I leaned into him, the more clear it was that he was saying, it's gonna be a long fast, Q. And he kind of said it like that too, because he knows I have a good relationship with my food, right? He knows. And I'm gonna tell on myself, I am not a fan of fasting, y'all. Like, it is just it was just not in my DNA, like every single time there was a church-wide fast, it just felt like an obligation. I gotta, so God was calling me to do this. And so since I wasn't a big fan of it, I decided to keep it to myself just in case I was hearing God wrong and I wasn't gonna commit to nothing crazy. But after a few weeks, I just knew that was the case. So I got a leader. I was talking to one of the leaders and I said, you know what? I think God is calling me to a fast. And by this time, I had already planned out the fast. I had negotiated with God on what it was gonna be. It was in September. We were about to launch. In October 1st was when I was gonna begin my fast. I was gonna do it for the whole month. And I was gonna do a daytime fast. As long as the sun is up, I won't eat. And so that was my plan. I even named it October Fast. And so we were gonna go at it, and as I was telling them this, he was suggesting and encouraging me, Q, I think you might wanna do like 40 days. And I was like, okay, 9 more days, let me think about it, And he says, and I think you might wanna do a juice fast, like just plain liquid juice fast. And I said, okay, look, I'll think about it. Just give me some time. And before I could even make a decision, he goes in front of the launch team and he goes, Pastor Q has committed to a 40-day juice fast to launch the church. In Jesus' name. So I did a juice fast. So I'm not gonna bore you with all the detail, but sometimes there were moments where I thought like I was gonna see the manifestation of Jesus just come down himself, I was like, it's holy time, baby, But none of that happened. I lost 40 pounds. I looked shriveled up. Like it was just this long-term fast, and that was it. That was it. Or at least I thought, until I talked to a friend of mine. He was in seminary at the time, and he said, tell me about the experience of the fast. And I said, okay, I was hungry. A lot. I was hungry a lot. And in fact, in day 3, I almost broke the fast because I came out into the kitchen late at night and there was food still on the counter. All right? And y'all, when you don't eat for 3 days, something happens to you, okay? Your mind starts going to places, and all of a sudden I was thinking, man, I could take a bite and no one would know. And my first thought was, but what if somebody sees me? There's people in the house, you know what I mean? Like, what if somebody sees me? And instantly, when I thought, what if somebody sees me? I just feel this thought that says, I thought you were doing this fast for me, not for the people who would see. And I was like, okay. So obviously convicted and didn't eat the food. And so day 7 comes along and same thought. What if somebody sees me? And God convicted me instantly. Wait, this is for you. Day 11, day 13, day 17, day 21. Every single time that was the case. And I told my buddy this, and that was it. And his response I did not expect because he was like gasping for air. He was like, oh my gosh, that was so worth it. Now, in the back of my mind, I was thinking, you weren't the one not eating for 40 days. But the holy me said, yeah, it was worth it. But tell me why you think it was worth it. And he says, man, you were fasting to launch this ministry, and God is making a perfect picture of saying, are you launching this ministry for God or for the people around you? And I'll tell you, that revelation has stuck with us through this ministry, through the launch of our church here, because at the end of it all, fast or not, launching the ministry or not, doing all of these things or not, God is looking at your heart. The heart of the matter is your heart. Is your heart right? It says, David says, search me, God, and know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts. See if there's any offensive way in me and lead me in the way everlasting. David is seen here requesting, asking God to reveal any ulterior motive. Am I on stage for? Am I trying to grow my business for? What is the heart about? And here, I believe that David's regularly just going to God and say, search me, oh Lord, is the reason why he is known as a man after God's own heart. And I don't know about you, I want to be known that way. However, because everything we do, every relationship we have, every encounter that we have, even the things we do at work, the things we've done in our, all of the interactions that we've had, for God, the heart of the matter is always your heart. It's not your situation. It's not your problems. It's your heart. The heart of the matter is your heart. God is way more about changing your heart than your situation. Way more about changing your heart than fixing your problems. We even see this right in the commandments when he was saying, these are the 2 greatest commandments. Love your Lord. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, because God's after your heart, and with all your soul and all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. And the second one is just like that. Love your neighbors. God is after your heart. And it turns out, y'all, our heart is all over the place. Our hearts is not pure. Our hearts is not pretty. Today, I just want to spend some time, and I was praying about this. I want to spend some time on just seeing all of the things that's competing for the thing that God wants. Because if God wants your heart, what is competing with it? Because if there's anything that is competing with God, it becomes an idol. And throughout the Bible, whenever it came to idols, God detests it because he's serious about your heart. He is completely, madly jealous for you. He doesn't want anything else to be grabbing a hold of your heart. And so if we want to know how to do this, the first thing you need to know is if God is after your heart, then the devil wants it too. There's nothing more then the devil wants then to steal your heart from God. We've been warned over and over, Ephesians 6:11, put on the full armor of God so that you can take your stand against the devil's schemes. That isn't in there to be pretty. It's because the devil has schemes, y'all. He is scheming for your heart. Proverbs 4:23 says, above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. You think when I was fasting, the devil wasn't doing his work? He was doing the work when Eve was tempted. He was doing the work when Jesus was fasting. Like, he's doing a work. He's tempting you all over the place. Now, we just ended, I've learned this thing about fasting, just in general, over time. We ended this church-wide fast, right? And before the fast begins, we tell you, hey, I want you to pray, I want you to go to God, I want you to talk to him and decide on what you're gonna fast. And then the negotiations happen. You know? And you know you're talking to God at this time because the enemy would not make you feel like you're not fasting enough. You know, you're like, I'm gonna choose this. And God's like, nah, take a bigger step. I'm gonna choose this. Then God's like, take a bigger step. And when you do commit and the fast begins, any negotiations thereafter is no longer with God. If you're talking to somebody about, hey, it was social media, but I just don't wanna miss any important messages. Or I gotta do this Bible verse post so that the gospel is shared. If you are fasting social media and all of a sudden you're negotiating with the devil. If it was sweet and sugar, Darren told me, he said that cupcake wasn't even that sweet. If it was alcohol, maybe I'll start tomorrow. God is after your heart and the enemy wants to steal it. Okay, it's nothing new. He's been doing this ever since the beginning. Genesis 3:6 says, when the woman Eve saw that the fruit of the tree was good for food and pleasing to the eye and also desirable for gaining wisdom, she took some and ate some, and she also gave it to her husband. In Jesus' name, thank you, Eve. Same tactics today as back then, tempting us. I'm joking. I love my wife. Same tactics. He goes after the thing you think you're lacking. So right now, during a fast, he goes after the appetite. She said she saw it was good for food. It was good. You know, and all of a sudden, the things that you're fasting on, it's all of a sudden good. Just one bite, just one drink, one hit. Just one phone call, one night out. Then the devil goes after beauty. She said it was pleasing to the eyes. Just one look, just one photo or one video. Then he goes after the pride. He says, this is desirable for gaining wisdom, she said. Separated from God. You don't need God in independence from him. Why bother? The knowledge that you gain, the pride that comes after that, and unwilling to let go of what you actually know, instead of going to God, humbling yourself and say, search me, oh God. Reveal to me anything that is not of you. Get it out of me. And this devil, he has the same bag of tricks. He's not doing nothing new. He's doing the same thing over and over, and we just keep falling for it. But if you have the Holy Spirit in you, I promise you, you have the power, and you do not need to fall for those tricks any longer. But I'll tell you also, we weren't meant to do this by ourselves. God put the church together for a reason. Here's a few ways to combat the enemy's temptation. One, get in his word. Get in his word. The Bible is life. The word is living. It's gonna feed you everything you need when you need it. Get in his word. And I know if we just did 10% of what we do on social media with God's word, just 10%. Just tithe your media time. that would be enough to just gives you, it would just feed you the things your soul needs instead of just on there consuming these things that kills your spirit. Second thing is get into community. I will tell you, e-groups here, we don't push it just so that we can have things going on during the week. We know it is an important factor, and it's a thing that you need in your walk with God. You need a community around you. For what reasons? To hold you accountable. That's one thing. If you're saying you want to take a step closer with God, they will hold you accountable to that. But get around a group of people that just won't condemn you for your struggles, but instead they'll encourage you and support you. Get into a group. And the last thing is stop hiding it. Pastor says it all the time. God can't fix anything that you're hiding. In the middle of this process, if you want your heart to slowly hand over to God, these are some of the things, because God wants your heart, okay? But as much as the devil wants to steal your heart, there's one thing I think has a bigger grip on our heart than the devil does, because your treasures are fighting for your heart. Your treasures, they fight for it. Now, Jesus makes this, he makes a huge statement here in Matthew 6:24. He says, no one can serve two masters. No one can serve. Now, he's referred to the devil as a master also when he was talking about demons and everything. But here he says, you actually serve this master. We run into the master, the devil, and the demons, but we serve this master. He said no one can serve two masters. Either you will hate the one and love the other, or you will be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and mammon. I know it says money, but mammon. Mammon is interpreted as riches and influence of monetary wealth, material wealth. He makes this a big deal. Can I tell you, ever since I've been saved and started studying the Bible, it has always piqued my interest why finances and possessions was spoken about, why it was so prominent in the Bible. Like, it is prominent. You've heard that it's spoken about more than love and grace and forgiveness and our Savior. All of that combined, money is talked about more in the Bible. And it's always kind of like, man, that's a lot. That's a lot. It's counted close to 2,000 verses in the Bible. We only have about 31,000 verses in the Bible. 2,000 of it was reserved for the spirit of mammon, because God knows it is more dangerous and more influential than any world religion. You can be born in this religion or born in that religion. In every single house in the world, you're born with the spirit of mammon over you. Every single house, no matter what nationality, no matter what country, there is the spirit of mammon that grabs a hold of your heart. This is the older I get and the longer I'm in ministry, I see it more clear than ever. This is why God made it such a big deal. Money has never been the heart of the matter. Your heart is the heart of the matter. God has always been about your heart. And we know that money itself isn't evil, but there's a few things I'd like to share. Timothy 6:10 says, for the love of money, because the heart loves the money. So it's not the resource that God gives you to steward. It's the heart that attaches to that resource is the root of all kinds of evil. Some people eager for money have wandered from the faith. It's written, they've wandered from the faith. Can you imagine something that took your spouse away? That took your child away, how much you would detest that? How much you would warn your children of that? And not only have they wandered away, they've pierced themselves with many griefs. The love of money, when it is taken your heart, it becomes an idol in your life. And I told you, God is serious about idols. He is serious because he is madly jealous for you. When somebody else, if there was another man who had my wife's heart, I would be madly jealous for her. And God is madly jealous of you. I'm telling you, 2,000 verses in the Bible because he is madly jealous for you. The tithe has never been about the money. It's always been about your heart. It's always been about your heart. In Matthew 19:24, it says, again, I tell you, it is easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for someone who is rich to enter the kingdom of God. Now, I've always prided myself on the ability to research well. You know, I study and I go in, and I was just telling my wife, like, there's this thing called confirmation bias, meaning like you already have a thought, so when you research, you just keep on researching your thought, and then it just confirms all of that. But I don't do that. I look at multiple views, okay? Everything around. I was like, okay, this is what I believe, but what do they believe? And what do they believe? And what do they believe? And so in general, I research, all right? And so the first time I heard this verse, of course, when I first got saved, I heard this verse, and I was like, man, a camel through a sewing needle. Now, a few years after that, I did some research, and there's this study that says the eye of the needle is actually a door at the gate, the door at the city gate that is for pedestrians. So then they wouldn't have to open the big gate. And so they call that the eye of the needle. And then, so there's this whole teaching about the camel. It is really hard for a camel to get through that eye of the needle door. In fact, that he would have to unload his possessions and get to his knees and gets dragged through this door. And it was symbolism to all of this stuff. And man, I thought that teaching was incredible. And so for the last few years, I've been teaching it just like that. I was on a walk with Lisa this week. I was telling her about this, and I was saying, did you know the eye of the needle is a gate? And she was like, come on, let's go, somebody. And I did more research. And there's no evidence for it, y'all. There's no evidence for this gate. In fact, the earliest mention that I could find was during the medieval times, that this commentary that said this teaching during the 1500s or something like that. And then all of a sudden, people would grab, because it's good teaching. You know, pastors all over the place. I've been teaching it like that in Jesus' name. There's no evidence. There's no evidence that that door existed. In fact, they say that it's a hyperbole, an exaggeration to show the impossibility. Not an opportunity and humbling, and it's an impossibility for a rich man to go to heaven. Now, he goes on to say what is impossible for man, all things is possible through God. But he wanted to make sure you understood how severe the love of money is. I try to find every single article that could support this. I could not. It is an impossibility for you to enter the kingdom of heaven as a rich man. I'll tell you, money is spoken about so much in the Bible because I think it's God's number one opponent. It's the thing that takes your heart more than any other thing we can list. And there's a lot of vices in the world, and there's a lot of things in the world, but when you're talking about totality, it is so hard. It is so hard to live our lives not thinking about money. We think about money all the time. We wake up, go to work. Why? Money. We go buy food. What do you need? Money. I forgot who said it. I believe it was, oh gosh, I can't remember his name. But he says, money is not the most important thing in the world, but it's right up there with air. How do you live this life without it? And so it creeps in and it takes your life. So how do we combat this spirit of mammon? It's as simple as living generously. It's as simple as that. Live generously. How do you activate this? Start tithing. God created the tithe in this way because he was after your heart. For me personally, when I started tithing, my family started tithing, it was about me loosening the grip of what finances had on my heart. Do I have it solved? No way. This thing peeks in and it grabs hold, and it's something I have to constantly go to God and say, search my heart, oh God, and reveal in me the thing that is taken my heart away from you. The thing that gives us security, independence. Why would I need God if I could fix it myself? These are the struggles, these are the difficulties, the trials that a rich person will have to go through that somebody in poverty would not. I'm not saying to be irresponsible and like to not steward what God has given you. The Bible also says if you don't work, you don't eat. Okay, so it's clear that he knows that it's an important thing to steward the things he has given you. But be alert and aware that money has that level of influence in your life. All right, it just has the ability to do that. And so God is after your heart. We know this. And the devil and the spirit of mammon is fighting for it. But you got to also know that your heart itself is fighting God. Your heart itself. Jeremiah 17:9 says, the heart is deceitful. How deceitful? Above all things and beyond cure. Who can understand it? Above all things deceitful. We know our heart. We know it lies to everybody. We know it lies to ourselves. We know our heart. In fact, Matthew 15:19, it says, for out of the heart come evil thoughts, murder, adultery, sexual immorality, theft, false testimony, slander. We know our thoughts. Sometimes I do an icebreaker and I ask a group of people, it's like, hey, if you had a superpower, what would it be? And somebody would say, I'd love to know people's thoughts. No, you don't. I don't want you in my head at all. I know my thoughts. I'm crazy. If you get in my head, it's crazy, y'all. I tell people all the time, you don't want to live in my head. Sometimes it slips out, you know? We're about to watch the game and we're going to be like, man, I hope Kelsey breaks this leg. We're Christians. Our hearts are evil. Our hearts are deceitful. And this is no matter what you look like, what you act like, how good of a person you seem to be. The Bible says that people look at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. We know our flesh, we know our thoughts. And the truth is, the more I dwell onto the ugliness of what happens in my flesh and my thoughts, the more hopeless sometimes I feel. Paul puts it this way. Romans 7:24, he says, what a wretched man I am. Apostle Paul, the man that he spread the gospel more than anybody else, he's sitting here saying, what a wretched man I am. Will we be real with ourselves and take a moment that really we would accept that we are filthy rags to be presented to God? What a wretched man I am. He said, who would save me? Who would rescue me from the body that is subject to death? That's the truth. We need to understand, we need the Savior more than anything. So I've been on this bread making journey, okay? Bread making. A few years ago, I bought a bread maker. I'm not a bread maker. I bought a bread maker, okay? And I decided I finally wanted to put it into use. So I found a recipe online, and I bought all the ingredients to make bread. I bought like $60 worth of ingredients to make bread. $2 a loaf in the store, and I want to go. Actually, it's about 17 now because of inflation. But so I bought it. It came in, and I started making this bread. And the only reason why I would even attempt this, because for staffs, just to give you guys some reference, okay? We had a staffsgiving one day, and my job was corn, canned corn. I messed it up so bad, y'all. I know. Nobody ate it. It was so bad. I was like, oh my Jesus. I took a taste, and I was like, let's dump this thing. Okay, so you got to know the context here. So I buy all the ingredients and I'm measuring it to the T. You know the thing that you put in the measurement and you put your finger across, like to the T, okay? I pop it in this bread maker. They say, just throw all the ingredients in, press start, and 3 hours later, poof, a loaf of bread. It's incredible. And my first attempt, it was a hit. I took pictures of it. Y'all have more pictures of the bread than my kids at 5 years old, okay? Like, I was proud. I sent it to my family. Like, I took a slice out of it. It looks like bread, and then it's steaming. Man, it was so good, y'all. It was such a, like, I won today, you know? And so we finished that loaf, and I said, okay, I'm gonna do it again. This time a little more confident, putting all the ingredients the same exact way. And then while it was baking, I see it. I pressed the light button. I could see in there. It looks great. And then when I took it out to cool, the whole thing collapsed and shriveled up. And I was like, what in the world? It was perfect. I did exactly the same thing. So I thought, okay, maybe it's a one-off thing. So I'm just doing it again. The next loaf collapsed. Next loaf collapsed. And I was like, what in the world? Good thing that he let me have the first loaf that was good, because I would have gave up by now. And so I started doing a deep dive. I started studying about bread. And I found the culprit was yeast, and I started doing a deep dive on yeast. And you know how I study. I just don't study on bread. Now I'm looking at the scientific factors of active yeast. I want to know what kind of organism, microbes it is. I want to know what it feeds and what kind of waste. So carbon dioxide and ethanol, and that's why all those bubbles happen. And that's where you get air bubbles in your bread. And all of those things are happening. And I fixed my bread, y'all. I fixed my bread. After like 7 bad loaves. Okay. I ate all of them. It just looked ugly, but it was still good. It just didn't look good. Y'all need to relax, all right? I found a dichotomy in the book of Matthew. I'm gonna share it with you. In the book of Matthew, chapter 16, it's 16 verse 6, it says, be careful, Jesus said to them. Be on your guard against the yeast of the Pharisee and Sadducees. Be on your guard against the yeast of the Pharisees. See, the thing is, Jesus understood how yeast works. He understood that when you feed it, when you allow it to penetrate, it just spreads throughout the entire loaf. In fact, another name for active yeast is called budding yeast. And under a microscope, don't ask me why I know, under a microscope, you can see a little bubble pop out of the other bubble, and so it's multiplying. So not only does it penetrate, it multiplies. Every 90 minutes, it doubles itself. And so you give yeast a little bit of time and it spreads all over your life. And he's warning the disciples about this. Do not let the yeast penetrate your heart. But a chapter later, in chapter 17, he says, he replied, because you have so little faith, truly I tell you, if you have faith as small as a mustard seed, you can say to this mountain, move from here to there, and it will move. Nothing will be impossible. We're talking about yeast. That our hearts have been contaminated, y'all. Our experiences, our relationships, the things that we've seen, politics, like arguing, like all of this fallout has contaminated our heart, and the yeast is spreading all over the place. But the next chapter, Jesus talks about the same size, about like if you see a kernel of yeast, like, I don't know, call it a kernel, but a tiny piece of yeast, it's about the size of a mustard seed. And as much as the yeast can spread, God has a promise. Jesus has a promise that faith as much as a mustard seed can grow and overwhelm your heart, grow into this massive, great tree. That no matter where the state of your heart is today, no matter the experiences you have, no matter how much you have rejected God, faith as much as a mustard seed can overwhelm and take over all of